Ну что ж, дамы и господа, друзья, я думаю, мы готовы.
Ladies and gentlemen, I believe we are ready to start. It is my pleasure to give the floor to Andrei Davidkovich, head of the platform of cooperation between citizens and authorities. Гражданин.ru. My name is Andrei Davidovich. And I would like to say that if somebody tells you that I'm a professional moderator, don't believe anyone. I joined these activities as a head of the civil project iGражданин.ru, a platform that is used to link citizens to the authorities. This is how I ended up being a moderator of this session today, and it will be my pleasure today to listen to those projects that conquered the entire world. And I do hope that today's panel discussion will launch new projects in the places where you are from, and I'm convinced that's the way it will be. For us not to lapse into monologues, I would like to invite you to be more active. Those of you who are receiving translation kits, do join us, take your seats. I think we are in for an interesting discussion. A few words about the project I introduce, iGражданин.ru. It is active in more than 600 cities of the Russian Federation, and probably the cities you represent have this platform, and hopefully I will acquire new friends today as well. My colleagues, organizers, allowed me to show you a promo video of our platform for you to have an idea of what we do. On the screen, you see our city of Kolomna, the project where we started our project. It's home to 150,000 residents. 7 years ago was when we started the project. These videos show real people who are using our platform. They have become a driving force of our project, and we're extremely grateful for their efforts to make that project a reality. Thank you. So, a few words about the format that we are going to use. Each speaker will have about 10 to 12 minutes for a short intervention. We have presentations to make. Let's agree on the following. Yesterday I saw a concert. I didn't sit till the end. I know how active you can be, and I know how energetic you are. I felt this yesterday. Now I want you to open up this energy in you for our speakers not to fall into complacency. I don't want them to be too calm. I asked my help assistants, no, if you hear something from a speaker and you want to oppose the idea, show this with your hand. The speaker will notice that and probably will give you a chance to speak up. If you want to say something in support of what the speaker is saying, thumbs up, raise your hand up for us to see who wants to support this speaker. So let's be a little bit more interactive. Do not be afraid to interrupt them. Do not be afraid to ask questions. I understand that there are no prepared questions. We are looking forward to listening to all sorts of questions. Our panelists are quite experienced, and you won't be able to confuse our speakers. Do not be afraid of that. Let me say that in an hour and a half that we have, will be devoted to the civil project that have conquered the world, and each session has a particular goal. Our goal for today is probably to understand this algorithm of actions that exist in all people's minds and to think of how this local initiative can be taken to a global level. We have at least 5 examples of this sort, and we are ready to share this experience with you after our discussion. We will try to take stock of what we have said, and the resolution of the panel discussion will include all your ideas and your proposals. Irina, a colleague of mine, is somewhere around. Irina, will you please raise your hand so we can see her? She will take down your ideas, and at the end of the session, we will go over them. Allow me now to introduce our speakers. Number 1, this is Evelyn Enderkirk, Executive Director of Dance for Life. Please give her a round of applause. Our speakers are all very excited to be here, so just don't forget to support them. Vladimir Kumov, the author of the idea Let's Bike It, the project of Let's Bike It, going to work by bike. That's the essence. Ms. Belogolovtseva, Natalia Belogolovtseva, I have known her for a while now. She is the head of the Center for Social Assistance with Cerebral Palsy, the Skis of Dreams. Natalia Belogolovtseva, this applause goes to you for the efforts. Proterei Tkachenko, head of Children's Hospice, the prize winner for exceptional results in charity activities, and member of the Public Chamber of the Russian Federation. Now, I would also like to introduce a speaker who will round up, Dmitry Saviolov. I saw people greeting him in the corridor. I hope that his presentation is going to be very interesting. He is the head of the social platform Change.org in Russia and the CIS. Don't forget to use translation kits. Evelyn, you have the floor. You are the one who will start the discussion.
Need to press it. Okay, well, I'm of course very nervous whether I'll see hands like this. Oh yeah, it's the clicker. Like this? Okay. Yeah, it's an honor to be here today because I'm in an exceptional group of people. Because you're all here because you want to create change in the world. And so do I. And my belief is that human beings are the instruments for change. Systems don't change. People in systems change the system. So thanks for being here. I have a picture of myself when I was about your age, 18. And I was dreaming of how I would have impact in this world, because that's what I wanted to do when I was in high school. This is a picture from me in high school. And it took me, unless I think you guys, because you are all here already, but it took me another 15 years to do so. I was working in the corporate sector for over 10 years. And at one point I thought, this is not fulfilling. I want to do something that creates change and real impact in this world. So I decided to quit my job and to go to Bolivia. This is a picture of me in Bolivia, where I worked with young people. This is voluntary work that I did in an orphanage, but I also worked in a school with young people between 7 and 17. And I was very fascinated by the fact that these kids were not stimulated to form their own compass, to think critically. to form your own opinion and ideas, to stay true to yourself. And I was able to develop a program there that was all about personal leadership for young people, because I honestly believe that personal leadership is the way to bring positive change in this world. So when I came back in the Netherlands, I knew what I wanted to do, work in the area of personal leadership. And when you know what you want, the right thing crosses your path in life. That's how it works. In my case, it was Dance for Life. And Dance for Life is all about empowerment, personal leadership in relation to health. And to be explicit, in relation to sexual health. Because we feel that all young people should be leaders of their own lives, of their own body. And what frustrates me so much, I mean, this is the biggest and fastest growing health risk for young people on this globe. For girls, it's the #1 health risk. For boys, it's #2. Totally unnecessary. If all young people on this globe would have access to information and health service like contraceptives, this would not be the case. So that's why I was really dedicated to work for Dance for Life. And when I started, these two guys, two Dutch marketeers, just founded the organization now 14 years ago. And they really introduced something new in charity world, to use commercial marketing techniques, youth culture like dance and celebrities, to really bring an organization to young people, because, well, you also want to do something that's fun and that really relates to your interests. That's what these guys invented. And back then, it was really an HIV awareness campaign based around the Millennium Development Goals. And it was a movement, it started as a movement in 3 countries to really empower young people to join and to remind the world leaders about the promises they made around MDG number 6, to end AIDS. So they started the movement, it grew, and this picture is from the program in Russia. Are there any Dance for Life Russia people here in the room? Can I see hands? Yay! Super. I think it's in 2005, Focus Media, a partner in Russia, joined Dance for Life, and we have been active in 32 regions. People like the ones that just raised their hands joined us and made the movement also big in Russia. And I think, I think that's amazing. I'm really proud of the work that you've been doing here in the country.
Эвелин, у меня есть один вопрос.
Evelyn, I have a question. Can I ask your followers here in this room, why did they join you? May I ask them this question?
Сказать, вот почему?
Can anyone tell us why you decided to join Dance for Life? What was your motivation to join? Will you please raise your hand and I will give you the mic? Do we have people like this? And mic over here, please.
Была присоединение проекта. Вот вы такая молодая, красивая, активная.
What's motivated you to join the project? I came to the project 4 years ago. So good afternoon. I'm Leah from Tver. I started working for this project as a volunteer. 4 years ago, I learned about this project in my school because Dance for Life program was introduced there, and I was really impressed by the energy it conveys. And when I learned about this program better, I understood that I wanted to be with these people. I wanted to change the world with them, and by myself, I wanted to disseminate information and to inject energy in people and to make people aware of their reproductive health and be fully aware about their health. And I saw your energy in the Igor Butman concert, and I couldn't but noticed your dance.
Explaining that to us. So the program in Russia is one of the programs in the 32 countries where we have been active. And you know, when your organization gets mature, you need to professionalize. You need to stay innovative. You need to stay relevant. And I think I'm very proud of the founders of Dance for Life, that they acknowledged at one point that they were very good at initiating the program, but not so much at consolidating it. So I think that's already a tip for all you here. If you start a movement, or when you're managing a movement, acknowledge the added value you have and be alert whether that's still what the organization needs. So our founders stepped out and acknowledged that they needed someone to consolidate and professionalize, and I was lucky that I was that one. So that's what we did. We grew, and I wanted to very quickly show you some numbers. We have reached, since our start, over 2 million young people on this planet. Over 800, thank you. Over 800,000 of them really became active in their communities, like you just explained, and really brought change to the community. And as I said, we've been active in over 33 countries. And these are all numbers, but of course what it's all about is the impact. And we know that through the program, young people have more knowledge, have different attitudes, but also have increased their self-esteem. So one could say all is going well. But we are currently transforming, because I think as a leader of a movement, you need to always confront yourself with the brutal facts. Are you still relevant enough? Do you still do what you need to do? And to be quite honest, for Dance for Life, after 14 years, I got a bit routine. We started to behave like a very classic NGO. We matured. We became part of the establishment. So I thought, no, I need to bring that energy that you were speaking about back. So we need to go back to our core. Why are we on this planet? What is our focus? What is the thing that we're really good at? Because I think in this NGO world, we're very good at all doing a little bit of the same. So yeah, we've been on a journey. And there are 3 things that I want to say about that, and then I'm starting to round up. That's that we still continue to work on that biggest and fastest growing health threat for young people, unsafe sex. But the second thing is that we believe that the answer to that problem is behavioral change. And we believe that empowerment of young people creates that behavioral change. So we have developed a product, the empowerment model, all centered around 3 things. How do you relate to yourself? What's your self-esteem? Do you value yourself? Are you able to set your boundaries? Because that is what you need to protect yourself. And second, how do you relate to the other, especially the one of the other sex? And third is, how do you relate to society? Do you dare to challenge social norms? And this product, this empowerment model, we bring to partners like the Russian NGOs here present through a social franchise. I don't believe in living from gifts only. You need to have a sustainable business model when you're a movement. So how do you continue, even though if your gifts disappear or if other things happen? So we really sell in a social way our model to partners in these different countries, and together we make the impact, which in our case is that by 2030 we want to have at least 5 million young people on this planet with our empowerment model. And I think that's sufficient for now, I hope.
Да. Вот я подниму так руку, да, вот можно я вот так покажу.
I will raise my hand like this. So it's going to be some negative question. People seem to be very interested. So, and it's really hard to motivate and stimulate people. So what kind of instruments have you employed in your activities to involve as many people as possible?
Yeah. Well, what we do is really, the movement is all about doing it together. And so we use a lot of elements from youth culture like music and dance to really inspire as many young people as possible to join in the programmatic activities. So for instance, in Russia, our partners really use ambassadors, famous Russian people who really have a connection to youth and really inspire youth to join. And then when you join, we feel to take care of other people, you also first need to take care of yourself. In a plane, you know, they always say first put the mask up on your own mouth and then help others. So that's really also our philosophy. If you're strong and completely in tune with yourself, you're able to give and to be an example to others. So that's our philosophy.
Спасибо. Я пока не вижу знак.
I don't see any signs yet, and I would like to ask you guys about what expectations you have of our panel discussion. What do you expect our panelists to say or to do? Can you share your expectations with us? Could you give the mic to this person? Good afternoon. I am from Uzbekistan. My name is Shimoza. Speaking of my expectations, why do you think that where did you find this inspiration to implement this idea? How did you fight your fears, fears of a failure? So I have lots of ideas personally in volunteering, in helping people with disabilities, but what stops me now is my fear. And this is my fear of failure. So what actually motivated and strengthened you in your motivation to achieve your goal that you have attained now? And now you are sitting in front of us as some examples to emulate. So this is a question to the person from Dance for Life. I've never heard about this project before. I've read something on Wikipedia right now, and I've been really impressed with your achievements, and I would like to join you. So the question is, how did you overcome your fears?
Every day. I also have fear to sit here, and I'm afraid that I will fail here. And I think that's good, because that keeps us sharp. It keeps me sharp. And I think one of the most important lessons I've learned in life is to be okay with that, and to share with people what your fears are, and to ask for help. Because I think if you allow fear, you dare to experiment, and that's what the world needs. That's what the real pioneers and initiators do. They experiment, and if it fails, and you continue. The world doesn't fall apart, you won't die. So I think embrace your fear and turn it into something positive. And looking at you, I think you're perfectly capable of doing that. And I would love to speak with you about how to bring Dance for Life to Uzbekistan.
Thank you. Андрей, можно ответить, Андрей?
Да, Наташа, а я хотел попросить.
Can I answer, Andrei? Yes, Natasha. I wanted to ask you to say something about fears. Yeah. So, as people say, danger is real, fear is a choice. And if you want to do something, you will find an opportunity to do it. If you don't want to do it, you will not. So, is there another question? I'm Sergey from Lugansk, and I have a question, the following question about Dance for Life. Throughout your history, you have come to 32 countries, which is very inspiring. And what system of training young leaders do you have, both in your country and in other regions, and how does this system operate? So, Evelyn, this is again a question to you.
We have two systems. We have one training system for partners, so NGOs who really want to use our model, so we train them. And we have educated trainers, amongst which some Russians, who train young people to go into schools. And they are called the Champions for Life. So they are the coaches and the role models for young people in schools. So we train both the youngsters that go into school and we train the organizations that work with our model. So it's quite an extensive program, but that's, I think, what is necessary to really bring the right energy across, and to be a coach and to be a leader is something that you need to really internalize well. And yeah, speaking of fears, I mean, it can be a bit scary. So I think it's very important that we take this serious and we coach and support young people in doing this.
И вот, знаете, от Эвелин мы...
So, Evelyn, we won't leave you alone, so to speak, for some time. So, but first, let's speak about money. I'm from Crimea, from the city of Simferopol, and our organization has always been concerned about funding. So this is the most difficult question. How did you raise capital for your project, and who is funding your project in 32 countries now?
Very good question. After being the executive director for 10 years, I can tell you I don't like fundraising. I'm tired of it. So it's, we started with seed funding from 2 Dutch foundations. We receive funds from the Dutch government, but in Russia we receive funds from the Russian government, for instance. We receive funds from corporates, private people. And the thing is, with fundraising, you need to be out there, you need to approach people, you need to sell. It's super commercial in a way. So that's one of the reasons why we are changing our model now and saying we want to do something more sustainable, that it's not too dependent upon funding. So that we really, what we've developed, that we can sell this at cost price to partners. And the reason why we're doing this is that we also see a trend that donors want to fund directly in countries. So lots of people who are interested, for instance, in supporting programs in Africa want to go directly to Africa and not through us in Holland, for instance. So that's also, it's changing. The fundraising landscape is changing, so you need to continuously adapt. But there is, yeah, I think to come back to your question, I don't think there's a golden rule. You just need to tap into all the sources out there, and it will take energy, frustration, but I guess that's all part of fundraising.
Да. Спасибо, Эвелин.
Thank you, Evelyn. I have seen your negative sign, so we won't forget it. And now, finally, we will leave Evelyn and give her some rest. Now I will give the floor to Vladimir. Can I have the clicker, please? So good afternoon. I would like to give you some story first. So we've been speaking about fears, and in 2010, I wanted to change something in Moscow because Moscow was not a convenient and comfortable place to live in. And together with my friends, we started thinking about what we could do in the situation, and we came up with an idea. To introduce bicycle culture in Moscow. And of course, at that time, it looked like this. And it was a completely automobile city, although it was an outdated trend all over the world, but still Russia was still a very highly automobile country. And so we started looking into why we were not using bicycles actively in the city, and why we didn't use bicycles as actively as they do in the Netherlands. And bicycles are considered to be something for young people. And besides, usually people say we have a very long and cold winter. And so we decided to break this stereotype because it was not quite true to life. And just to give you an explanation why it's not true. So we found out that bicycle users were at that time male on average, young men they were, although in Europe it was more a female transportation method. And so the main explanation why was because our city was not very safe for bikers. And so we decided to plan some event that could show that the bicycle could be accessible and affordable to everybody. And so we decided to organize the bike parade in Moscow. It took us 2 years to authorize the project because we had to block traffic in different streets, but without blocking the streets, we could not make our parade safe, and so we had to do that. And in 2010 we failed, but in 2011 finally we got some authorization from our authorities. And speaking about how you can overcome this fear of yours, this is how we did it. And so in 2012 finally we fully agreed this parade with the authorities, and on social network we had a community of about 1,000 of people, and we decided that we had only 2 weeks to show the whole of Moscow that the bicycle was a good transportation method in our city as well. So we advertised our bike parade on social networks, and we urged our members of the community to publish advertising materials by themselves and advertise it among their friends. So I have seen some kind of urge on your part to see that you wanted to say something, right? So I didn't quite understand the question. So the speaker is speaking, but what are the guys there discussing? Can you speak up, please? Apart from your projects, do you have any regular job? So how do you make money? You know, when we started our project, I had an office job. The majority of our team are still in their offices. This is fully a volunteer activity, and now we're trying to find some staff, regular staff for our project, because we want to transform it from a grassroots initiative to some regular story with figures and charts and so on. So I left my job in 2012, and now we have 2 more people on our team who have left their office jobs and joined the project on a regular basis. So this is our first slide. It shows how many people helped us. It's about 200 people.
The promo video was done by someone from afar. Others helped us from other cities. So they all made us make sure that this project is a reality. Over 8,000 participants joined us. The authorities expected no more than 2,000. We did manage to succeed that bikes do not require special uniforms, and this is not something that can be used by young people only. It's all about very bright emotions. So one of the most important results is that we are mentioned on all the social media. We are the second most mentioned topic in the Russian blogs. This gave rise to similar campaigns in other cities. Let me interrupt you once again. My name is Konstantin. I'm from St. Petersburg. What is my question? How and with whose help do you get resources? Where do you get your bikes, for instance? Who funds your project? Just open your secrets, right? All our events are sponsored. We are not ready to work on budgets. They are very unstable. You may have it today, but may not have tomorrow. As far as bikes are concerned, these are the bikes brought by participants themselves. We're not doing this for fun. We do not provide bikes. So parades started. Well, people like this parade. We held one in winter in the temperature of below 27 degrees. You see more people participated in winter. We attracted more new sponsors. Many people were doubtful whether we would survive at all, minus 27 degrees. You can imagine how cold it was out there, but we did feel hot. One of the most important achievements is the Transportation Ministry supported our initiative, and starting 2016, Russia has been holding one national day of cycling parades. In Moscow, such events gather more than 42,000 participants. We block traffic in some streets, and one year we had 60 cities around Russia participating in this effort, in this initiative. The second initiative I was supposed to speak about is Bike to Work Day. Something that was also supported by the Ministry of Transportation of the Russian Federation. This is a follow-up to our first initiative. We have cycling parades at weekends, and it didn't help us improve the infrastructure. So we decided to conduct this Bike to Work Day, something that is done in other countries. We looked at the experience of the US and Europe, transformed it a little bit, and suggested that Russian companies support this event. In the first year, we had no more than 11 years. Half a year later, we had more than 100 years. Now, we have more than 20 Russian companies all over the country participating in this event. What does this mean? It means that they invite their employees to use bikes or when they go to work and offer them some sort of benefits. You see that the event is growing in scale. Moreover, as far as resources are concerned, how can we motivate companies? We started this campaign back in 2006 when the financial crisis struck the country. Many companies started reducing their expenses on team building, and our proposal was a very cheap, not expensive way to create teams, to continue team building efforts for companies. And thanks to this event, we now know who uses bikes in this city and how this affects people in the city. 20% out of 7,000 employees of companies said that they started using bikes on a regular basis after taking part in the cycling parade. They understood that it was quite safe, and it is quite safe, and they started using bikes on a regular basis. Now, the figure of this year, companies that have joined our event, more than 1 million employees this September participated in this Bike to Work Day. Probably we will reach a figure of 1.5 million, maybe 2 million people participating in our event. As you see, the number of people participating keeps growing. 70 cities participated in the Bike to Work Day. Officials participated in this event themselves. So let's give a mic to an official. Do we have an official here? Good afternoon. My name is Eduard. I represent the Netherlands. I see a lot of statistics here. You've done a lot, but for me, there's a question. Vladimir, do you see any changes in the traffic patterns after you conduct such events? Do people continue using pave works? I don't know. I don't quite understand how people do this in Moscow. Sometimes you can do it, sometimes not. I tried riding a bike in Moscow myself, but once you motivated the people to use bikes, do people pay attention to this? Are infrastructure facilities there? Is the situation changing? Do they repair roads? So any changes whatsoever in Moscow. It's no coincidence that I started with statistics, because safety and security is very important. Of course, Let's Bike It is not only about organizing events. We communicate with the Transportation Ministry, improving the regulatory framework. What the laws we have now are not cannot incorporate provisions related to bikes. So we have been doing this for 3 years. We do notice certain developments in infrastructure. This is particularly visible in Moscow this year. There is a central station that makes it possible for people to rent bikes, and the number of people renting bikes increased 15-fold. Thanks to such events and companies participating in these events, they are creating the necessary conditions, motivating their employees. I'm aware of 3 companies considering giving benefits to those employees who use bikes on a regular basis. May I interrupt you, Vladimir? We won't be able to finish up the presentation. We have an unknown commentary. I don't understand what is meant by this gesture. I live in Moscow, and answering your previous question, unfortunately, Moscow is not as happy as Amsterdam or the Netherlands in general, where the cycling culture has been around for a long time. This is part of the urban life, but yet I should say that the first slide was quite interesting, of eternal traffic jams. I participated in one of the parades. I think it was the first one that I participated in. In Moscow, it's actually impossible to construct roads only for cyclists. There are few, but they do appear. Thank you. We're interested in not in what, but in how things should be done. Good afternoon. My name is Olga. I've been living in Moscow for 5 years. I'm a student. The question I have is as follows. Do you yourself own a car? And when you were an office employee, how often did you use your bike to go to work? In minus 27 degrees below zero, for instance. You are promoting this very idea. But do you yourself often use bike? Well, quite a number of questions in one. When I was an office employee, I didn't even think about going to work by bike. I started this project because I didn't feel comfortable in public transportation. I don't own a car. This is my principled position. I don't think residents of major cities or big cities need a car, but we have 2 cars in my family. We sold the 3rd one. As far as the temperature is concerned, below 27 degrees in Moscow, as in most Russian cities in Central Europe, this is an extreme temperature. In the rest of the time, the temperature is around 0, minus 10. This is quite comfortable, I should say. I do use the bike myself. Now, I don't have an office. I can work where I want to, but we meet with people involved in the project. We do use bikes when we get to the meeting point. In answering to the infrastructure facilities are concerned, since 2015, we've been organizing Cycling Congress. This year, we won the bid, and we're going to hold a Winter Cycling Congress in 2018 that aims to discuss how cities in colder climates can create comfortable environments for cyclists. If you happen to be in Moscow in February on 8 and 11, do join us. Countries from all over the world, including Canada and Norway, for instance, Sweden, will be sharing with their experience. Evelyn has a commentary to make.
I, of course, love the program, but I was thinking, for me it's not clear, is the main driver to get people on a bike to solve traffic issues? Because then there are also other things like car sharing and things, or is there also a health, like getting people to move more? For me it's not clear what you're working towards. When are you satisfied? What needs to change?
Для нас, наверное, вообще основная
For us, the main motivation is to see more people than cars in the streets, because when we see more cars than people in the streets, it's not very comfortable. When you come to Europe, we see more people there. We see tourists walking on foot. We see city residents. When it comes to Moscow, oftentimes we see pavements full of parked cars. No one can move around. So we just wanted to see more people in the street. That was our major drive back in 2010, at least. Just wanted to have more people. Now we're thinking about public health issues, economy. Do you feel the skepticism hanging over the room? Well, I'm used to this. I've been living with this skepticism for 7 years now. I would like to support you. By the way, if I supported the audience, I would have gone to them long ago. I was the first person who would stop at the crossing for the pedestrians, even when these rules were not incorporated in our traffic rules regulations. I do see all your hands. Now I would like to move on from skeptical sentiments. I do remember those hands you raised. You wanted to ask Evelyn a question. Let's give the floor to Natalia Belogolovtseva. I think she will add some positive note, but do remember your questions to the previous speakers. I'll get back to you. Could you switch on the presentation, please? Andrei, as someone who knows me, did the worst introduction for me for some reason. My project is called Russian charitable program, the Skis of Dream. This program is related to people with special needs, but it's not only about people with disability. It's about success, about total success of any individual in any physical state. As far as leadership is concerned, I believe there are two most important qualities that a person should have. A person who wants to be a leader is self-irony and ability to work towards a result. If you have both qualities, then there are no obstacles that can prevent you from reaching the highs. When preparing for the festival, I found out that the World's Youth Festival is part of my family's history. On the left, you see my mother, who participated in the 6th Festival of Youth and Students back in 1960s. And then in the center, you see my husband, who in 1985 participated in, he was one of the volunteers. He was dressed in green. He was among the thousands who together created pictures on the stadiums. On the right, you see my son, Evgeny. This program grew out of a one family story. Unfortunately, we're not ready for such situations, but they're quite possible, and they are very likely to occur when people face serious problems, health issues, either their own health issues or in their family ones or dear ones. It happened that one of our sons had lots of health issues. He has problems with the heart. He didn't breathe for 2 months, and the doctors believed that he wouldn't survive. Now he's 29. He has a very complex form of palsy, cerebral palsy, and lots of other problems. On your right, you will see that he is a prize winner of International Cinema Festival, inclusive festival for those with special needs. He is the only person in our with an acting diploma, although 4 people from our family work in TV and have been professionally engaged in this activity. My life story and the difficult struggle for the life of my son, this program was born without aiming high. Several years ago, I think 6 years ago, abroad in the United States, we taught my son to ski, and the ideology of classes like that abroad. And as I understand, such classes exist in Australia and the United States, only not in Europe. It's an opportunity to get equal rights, to do something that can be done by any people without those special needs, without disabilities. But after our son took this up, we saw an absolutely different story. We genuinely found this magic wand that helped us. It turned out that for us to be able to heal, to cure a seriously ill person, a person with any diagnosis, we'll speak about this later, you should make him do extreme sports, or allegedly extreme sports, and this produces a very almost instantaneous effect, and it's quite cheap and a multi-purpose, multifunctional way towards health, including mental health and endless success. Dream Ski is another name for our program. It has been 3 years old now. We have a group of volunteers without any funding. Just to forestall your questions, a friend of our family, maybe not the closest one even, gave us $20,000 to bring to Russia a foreign specialist and to buy 2 sets of equipment. We started in Moscow with 9 kids who we selected at random from the internet. What happened over the 4 days only, 4 days of the training in Moscow, what happened over the 4 days with these children changed my life entirely. For 3.5 years, I haven't been able to eat and sleep. I've been saving humanity, something I do not like. I want to be an ordinary individual and lead an ordinary life, but still, this is what I have been doing. Do I understand you correctly? Is that not to burn out, you should not be involved in it? Or do you have a different motivation? To be resultative, you shouldn't be thinking about money, you should be thinking about the result. Sometimes this can be difficult, but now, out of the volunteering project, let me make it clear, I haven't worked a single day in an office. I'm a professional housewife, and the only thing I did apart from my family life, I did some journalism. I don't have any special skills to be able to develop a project like that. Yet, any project that is developing one day should become professional. I will say about this in a moment. Over the 2 years, the volunteers, a very small team of volunteers, we set up a special basis of methods. We worked out a system of training specialists. We start producing the necessary equipment. We opened up in 7 regions of the Russian Federation. This was done thanks to the efforts of volunteers. Anastasia Levinova is a participant of this festival, and she's a volunteer, head of the Tyumen branch of our Dream Ski program. She can answer questions about the number of grants she tried to submit. She doesn't have children with special needs or with disabilities. She wasn't motivated by that. But in the Tyumen region is one of the best regions. This is a living example of what can be done by hand. Can you please stand up? Thank you very much for what you've been doing. More often than not, I hear applauses but don't see dislikes. Are there any comments to make on what you have heard so far? Any comments to make? Victoria from the Kirovsk region. I represent a center for young people with limited mobility. We learned about the project last year. We even applied on your website, and we received the necessary information about the project. The only question we have is how you can train specialists. Can we get in touch with each other, or how can we train the specialists we need for us to be able to start this project?
I think this is a question for a broad audience. Actually, you can come to our site and you will find all contact information there. So I understand that we are running a huge project and very complex, very big. If you have any questions, give me your business cards, and I promise you that we will send this presentation to you and give all possible information that you need. On this map, you see what has grown out of my personal initiative, because there are only two co-founders in our project, my husband and I. Now we have our offices in 24 regions of the Russian Federation. It embraces more than 55,000 participants. So all the people that have come in touch with us become part of our huge team, and we try to engage the governors of different regions. So we first start with giving them our T-shirts as a gift, and then we'll try to manipulate them into a partnership with us. So whether you like it or not, by 2020, about 20% of the Earth's population, which means 1 out of every 5 people, will have disabilities, both inherited or acquired. And so this is a huge question, a huge issue. So what is the dream skis now? In the winter, it is alpine skiing. You can practice this sport even near Moscow. By the way, we have not launched our program in Sochi yet, but we are working on this. So although we have minus 27 degrees in the winter in Moscow and we cannot ride a bike there, but we need to do some winter sports nevertheless. And so we have come up with an innovative program, which the roller sport program, and one more program that we have started is the team sport activities in the summer. So if we speak about the physiological explanation why it works, within 2 weeks people start walking, people with autism start speaking, and I will give you some examples later. I can explain the medical mechanism of this rehabilitation. So the main children's rehabilitologist of the country was here in the morning, but she explained me how it works. Briefly. So introduce yourself, please. I'm Amur Khan. I'm from Vladikavkaz. This is North Ossetia, Russia. So I promise to be brief, but I can't be brief. So Evelyn, I liked you a lot. And when I was dancing in my soul. So this is a person from the Caucasus, you see? So she has two children, you know? So don't flirt. Okay, so we have listened to your information about 3 projects, and my first motivation to be here with you today was to be inspired. And I am inspired now. But I have a question about this program for children. So is it for free? So first of all, it's not only for children, it's for adults as well. There is nothing for free in this world. For example, we're sitting here for free, but somebody is paying for that. So for participants, it may be in different formats. 40% of our participants are for free. We pay for them, so we find funding through charity programs and foundations, from regional budgets, from parents' money. So a full course in our program costs from 3,000 to 10,000 rubles for our participants. And the main task is to create a full rehabilitation plan of treatment for our participants, which can be state-funded. So if you ask me, I cannot pay for the whole country, you know. So this program, but we do not earn money through this program. This is not commercial. So asked about this because rehabilitation, medical rehabilitation, is a huge business. And my question, a question occurred to me while listening to you: if there are no businessmen who can pay for such things. Personally, I'm in some related area, so your course is not costly, which is cool. So you can find partners in North Ossetia. For example, I can be your partner in North Ossetia. Thank you very much, because from a professional homemaker, you have made yourself into a very good organizer. So, Natalia, you know, everything can be stolen in this world. The logo of a company can be stolen, but there is something that cannot be stolen. Trust cannot be stolen. So if you can induce trust in your audience, nobody else will try to steal it. Okay, so no one can steal trust, and no one can steal your soul that you contribute to your work. So some people can make some attempts to damage you. For example, we have some patent dispute with one person in the West, but this is not a very good story of some kind of financial fraud, unfortunately. Somebody else tried to do something different, but to defeat us, these people have to be very, let's say, they have to be very much inspired to do that, but they are not, luckily. So let me finish my presentation. I can tell you a fantastic story from our roller program. The roller sport is equally efficient in terms of rehabilitation, and people that cannot walk, stand, and can only lie can practice this sport. You can see my son Zhenya, he in these pictures, and now he can do it on his own. So the Dream Sky Summer program is accessible in all parts of our country. You can be part of this program regardless of a very strange opinion that is very popular in our country, that people with disabilities should not practice sports in educational establishments, and usually they are given a special medical leave for such classes, which is a crazy thing, I think, and this is completely wrong. Through sports, people can rehabilitate themselves. They cannot be deprived sports. So our program are very easy to implement, and our programs are 100% successful. We don't have any exceptions to this rule. So there are no failures in our program, which is a big breakthrough, not only the participant, but for the participant's family as well. Because usually the parents and the families of children with disabilities find themselves in a very bad situation, because when you have a child with disabilities, you start being guilty at once, because you cannot give your child a normal life. You cannot live a normal life in your family, and this is really hard for the families. And so we have come up with this program just to overcome this unpleasant feeling of some undeserved guilt. So I saw your project working in the Perm Krai, one of the territories of Russia, and I was really impressed, and I want to join your project, and I want to thank you for what you're doing. And I would like to ask our audience, do we have any foreign guests here? Can you raise your hands, please? So you have heard 2 times already that in Moscow in the winter, the temperatures can go below 27 degrees Celsius, minus 27 degrees Celsius. So I don't want you to leave Russia with this only stereotype of Russia. So, you know, we have different temperatures here. Natalia, just to wind up, to finish your presentation, We are doing research all over the country because we want our program to be substantiated with scientific evidence, and our state can economize a lot on various medical activities of rehabilitation because our program is more efficient and less costly. If we speak about training specialists, then we're training the best specialists ever. Our specialists are the best in the world. I think that we have overtaken our American teachers in very many ways. So here you can see Elina Sukhova with the development disorder. She can't walk, but after 4 classes on roller blades, she started walk, holding her mother by the hand. So this is Ivan Ivansky with autism, 9 years old. So, and our roller program gave them a normal, healthy child. So Zhenya Gorkushina with Rett syndrome, that's when a healthy girl starts losing her abilities. Now she can speak. Her brain is working the right way. Our children have become winners, not only among children with disabilities, but also among healthy children. For example, Leah Burmistrova came 5th among healthy children. So our successes really impress professional sportsmen, sports people, athletes. We have very good relations with our soccer team. So our national team participate a lot in our program. So you see our national team here in the picture with our participants in wheelchairs. So unfortunately, I have to interrupt you, Natalia. I would like to thank you for what you are doing. And I'm sure that you will have to answer some questions from our audience. But I would like to introduce the next speaker, Alexander Tkachenko. Can you show your presentation, please? So while listening to you, I started wanting to dance and to ride a bicycle. What about skiing, alpine skiing? So that's what I do quite well. Yes, we play lots of roles in our life. I'm a professional biker and diver, scuba diver, but my main activity and capacity now is the director of a children's hospice. That was the first children's hospice in the country. I'm not going to speak about pain and misery of people, but I want to speak about what you can learn when helping others, especially those who have uncured diseases. So our hospice was established in 2003, and now it is a medical facility that works together in collaboration with the government, and those hospitals that we have usually are sponsored by through charity foundations, and then they are given to the government to make them state-owned. The first reason for that is that our government can provide budgetary funds to our hospitals. So our project now covers the whole country. We have introduced different documents to establish palliative services in the country. We now try to help more than 400 children with incurable diseases. And when we speak about palliative care, now we have organized a congress where we had participants from 64 regions of the country. And this is some role model to other hospices as well. So what underlies our activities is the philosophy that helps us live and our patients, that helps our patients live and stay joyful and fulfilling, self-fulfilling. So this is a philosophy that helps to live when time has come to die. Especially, but it means that even if you have a lethal diagnosis, that does not mean that your life stops right away. So you still have to live and to be motivated for that. Of course, for patients and for our patients and for their families, it's a trial, it's an ordeal. But for our staff, this is just a job of assistance, of accompanying these people on this way. So what does not help here is words, but what does help is compassion and empathy and full care of the family. When our patriarch Kirill visited our hospice in St. Petersburg, he said a wonderful phrase. He said that it's not people with disabilities who need us, it's us who need them. And this is a way for us to understand the value of each particular moment in life. And we find ourselves when we help others. But this is my personal experience as a person in clergy. What can we offer to the world? Our country is really diverse. We have different regions, different cultures, different languages, and we have different levels of development of our healthcare system in different regions. So in some regions, we have introduced some methodology how to organize various brigades, mobile brigades that could bring our assistance to those who live in very remote places. What is important to me? Each employee of ours, any volunteer, becomes finally a specialist in palliative care. There are questions that patients and their parents ask people. So they are very philosophical, existential questions. Why, who is guilty? Why do they have to have this disease? Who is guilty for that? Why do they have to have this burden in life? And these questions are put to very common people, to our drivers, to our cooks, to our nurses. And so our staff should be trained how to answer these questions in very different ways, depending on what background the person has. For example, we have published a book, and for this book we have invited the main rabbi, the main imam, and also Orthodox priests. And this book is, a wonderful book. And the main answer that is given in this book is that we feel pain. We're very different, but we feel pain in the same way. And we explain to different representatives of various confessions how they can be of help to others.
I've just seen a girl who has started applauding hearing you. Good afternoon. My name is Yulia. It's life, and I believe that we're losing the feeling of how to be human. We start avoiding people with difficulties, but we should understand there are people out there who can suffer. We pass by. I came across such problems myself. I'm pretty emotional by nature, and I feel that what you're doing is quite sincere. That's the sense of your life. I understand that you're going to continue discussing this after we finish our discussion. We have another person willing to make a commentary or to ask a question. Thank you very much. My name is Konstantin. Look at the girl writing a text message to me who is trying to tell me that she doesn't hear you. Kindness. My name is Konstantin. I'm from Moscow. How do you work? How do you individually work with each child? Are we talking about someone with the necessary training in the area of psychology, or are we talking about representatives of certain religions, or do you have a mixed approach? Another question I have, how do you explain to people the idea that a person should be prepared to die? Today, when the primacy of Western culture can easily be observed, it has replaced the idea of death from our minds, and most people consider death to be something unacceptable. If you bring this topic up in a conversation and ask someone if he wants to be buried or cremated, for instance, they start looking at you, puzzling at whether or not I'm sane. We should be thinking about life rather than death. The first question, the philosophy of children's hospice is to talk about life. We should help people to live. Secondly, to speak about death, you should answer this question yourself, how you want to live your life and how you want to die. Those people who deal with patients have already found the answers. Above all, we are talking about a medical organization, so our activity is regulated by the necessary rules. We are a medical organization once again, and apart from the medical stuff, we engage other specialists as well. You can carry on with your presentation. I was surprised to realize that my initiative was in demand in Europe. We have always thought that Europe has everything. It turns out that they don't have children's hospital. The first children's hospice in England was opened back in the 1990s. We opened in 2003. Until recently, there haven't been any hospices in Europe, and our initiative encouraged people in Europe. They started coming to us to learn about our experience. 4 days ago, we received 60 doctors from Belgium who wanted to understand this ideology of palliative medicine, and they wanted to introduce it back there in Belgium. There are similar foundations in Italy, for instance, and other countries abroad. That's the experience Russia can boast, and that's very important indeed. Most importantly, the most important secret of a children's hospice is that we were not made up by someone. We are not somebody's fantasy. The first patient in our hospice taught me how to take care of such patients, and it's important for us that parents and their children tell us what they think palliative medicine should be all about. And the pictures show that that's the right psychology. We are embracing life. We add life to our patients, even when our patients are losing their lives. That's probably is part of my philosophy as well, which helps me carry on. I heard a question about obstacles, or how can one get rid of fear. There is a biblical phrase, perfect love can conquer fear. If you love someone or something, you won't be afraid of anything. Love whatever you are doing. My second principle, you see my principles in this slide, there should be no compromises. Your life position should be uncompromising. Live a generous life, another phrase from the Bible. If you sacrifice your life for someone's sake, do it up to the very end. You should aim high. You should be unafraid. A great project starts with small moves. Major shifts in society start with yourself. So that's important for you to pray. no matter what God you have in mind. Another principle is quality. Whatever project you are implementing, do your best. What prevents you is lack of priorities. That's why you should prioritize. And no matter goals you pursued, we spoke about funding, support of the state, that's important. But more importantly is who you are working for. Help the families, help the children, and you will get the rest. And a couple of remarks for future leaders. This is something I have been thinking about for a long time. Today, oftentimes non-profit organizations are compared with that of the state. We shouldn't be doing that. Non-profit organizations are partners of the state in addressing the social problems. We are not replacing the state. We shouldn't be in conflict. We're not on a collision course. But they can do something state organizations cannot do. We can reach out to the target audience, we can understand what their needs are, and make sure that state resources reach the target audience. Secondly, religious organization or faith-based organizations. I'm not talking about the Russian Orthodox Church only. Any organization of this kind will be a non-profit organization. This is a very strong actor of the non-profit sector. It is ready to address social issues. They will help a lot. Most importantly, and this is something that I have heard more than once, my colleagues mentioned this several times, and I'm happy about that. At a certain stage, you should get tired of what you're doing. You should grow out of it. You should turn into a professional. Besides being initiators of a project, you should become professionals or hire a professional. But if you understand that you're not ready to do routine, but instead you would like to promote other projects and inspire other people, do it. There are leaders who can carry out lots of projects. You will be joined by professionals who will do the fundraising issues and cooperation with society. God help you. Every success to all of you. Well, the last thing we want to do now is to ask questions, but still, somebody may be willing. Good afternoon. I have a comment rather than a question related to the Dream Ski in the Tyumen region. This class is absolutely free thanks to the gubernatorial governors project program. I think there are similar projects supported by governors or local authorities. Charitable programs, and you can make this quite accessible or even free of charge for certain regions. Now, these projects, once again, are absolutely free, both for children and parents, and the equipment and the rooms and the ski passes are given for free. I know that Natalia Belogalova, after this panel discussion, is not going to leave. You can discuss this with her in person. Just a brief comment. I have a question to Alexander. I often meet families who are absolutely, categorically against sending their child to a hospice. For them, it's probably good if the child ends up in a hospice because they have all the necessary equipment, all the necessary medications that cannot be bought in any drugstore. But the parents are reluctant, which makes children suffer. The last case of this case simply killed me. The mother told me that she was prepared to rent a house with a beautiful view out of the window for her child to pass away. But the child kept crying because he could not do without the necessary medication. He was crying because of pain. How can you explain to parents in a situation like this that you are doing the right thing? I think you don't need to explain anything if in a particular region there are the necessary conditions. The children's hospice that I built, and I have built 4 of them now, we built a palace, a 5-star life, all the necessary conditions. Families can stay together. They can even have a pet with them in the ward. We have badgers, we have foxes. if a region builds a hospice like that, people should understand that's not a hospital. They will live and they will stay there in comfortable conditions. Not all regions are capable of doing this, of course. We need some time for that. And of course, the relevant services in this situation should be empowered to render all the necessary assistance. Of course, it's related to the regulatory framework. It's related to the circulation of drugs or drug-containing medications. We need time. Public health officials and regional authorities are doing what they can. They're training specialists in Moscow and St. Petersburg, in our major cities. Once again, more time. 5 years ago, many doctors were not even aware of palliative medicine. Now the situation is changing. We are at the beginning of a new medicine here in this country. I'd like to ask our audience, who is aware of change.org? So you have your audience, as a matter of fact. And I've left Dmitry Savelov for dessert, so to speak. He will be the last speaker. This project is going to be showcased in an absolutely new light and will give food for thought. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. I'm particularly pleased to say a bit more about my project, and probably for you as part of our discussion, maybe it's a good thing that I'm the last one to speak. I will tell you what we have learned, what factors we have identified for certain initiatives to succeed and grow into a large-scale project. A few words about us. I know that some of you know about change.org. We are an independent platform which makes it possible for any individual to file a petition related to a problem of concern to him or her. And in this regard, we are not a website that collects signatures. We position ourselves as a platform for bringing people together who are not indifferent, who care. And at this moment, our platforms are being used by 200 million people all over the world from 196 countries, 18 languages. 5 years and a half, we launched our project here in Russia. Now 30 million Russian citizens create their campaigns, thus improving their lives. Thank you. There are three main principles we have identified as the most important ones, as the core one that brings us forward. The first one is that we believe that one problem has several solutions. We believe that a personal story is the most effective driver of social change. And thirdly, people who want to change their life are more numerous than those who are unwilling to do anything. The question is how to bring such people together in a more effective way and how to engage them. So these are the three principles that helped us reach such a magnitude. So what people are we talking about? Let me give you a few stories. Alexandra Schneidruck, you may have heard about her. It happened last month. She's a lawyer, a defense attorney, and she realized that not all the victims of the terrorist act in the St. Petersburg metro were compensated. The terrorist act took place back in March. She made a petition asking to pay back those compensations. She united more than 140,000 people. She succeeded in that. Moreover, she succeeded in drafting a bill that is meant to protect victims that found themselves in similar situations. Amanda Nguyen from Washington, D.C., the United States, being a victim of sexual violence herself, she turned her personal struggle into a federal law that was adopted last year in the United States, protecting even better victims of sexual violence, giving them equal rights and responsibilities, regardless of what state a victim resides. Previously, individual states had their own laws. Now she took it to the federal level, thanks to the 150,000 people, if I'm not mistaken. Anton Tulikov, a blind person from the city of Pikulova, Russia, for whom the only chance to communicate with the outer world was to make use of the internet. And he found that a great number of Russian websites are inaccessible for blind people. He started his campaign to change the internet. He started with the social media vkontakte.ru, and he has changed the situation. Quite a few success stories. Now, these guys protected their schoolmate who was being deported by the local authorities. Svetlana Lapina convinced the Sberbank bank. She convinced the bank to review its insurance policies and things like this. We see similar stories each and every day on our platform. Every hour, someone's petition achieves success. In Russia, it's about once a day, probably. That's the statistics we have. This is unbelievable result. On the other hand, that's a unique resource for us because it gives us an opportunity to analyze the situations. By looking at those success stories, we try to learn certain lessons. What makes them a success? What are the factors? What factors affected them? I believe these ideas and knowledge will be of interest to all of you, not only if you want to file a petition, but if you start any civil initiative, regardless of whether you work in a charity fund, in a startup, or elsewhere. 5 things that we have identified. The first one is that all successful initiatives focus on a small aspect of a larger issue. For instance, the story with Anton Tulikov, who could have started his campaign by demanding amendments to the law, which would provide a better accessibility of the internet for the blind people. But he chose to concentrate on one website, on one social media, vkontakte.ru, and within a few weeks he managed to reach changes. Now, Anton Tulikov, he was absolutely no one knew about him. Now he have more than 470,000 people who supported him, who can join him in his further initiatives, thus making further improvements in the existing system. The next item, the next idea is quite simple, but all simple things are important. Personal stories matter. They are the most important driver of social change. Another example of another situation when Anton Tulikov, and his example is important. No one will ever understand what it means to live being blind, but we can feel it. If a person tells us about what it feels like living a blind life, we can understand at a certain stage that it is important that we're not looking at it through statistics, but through the eyes of a particular individual. And we have identified that it works in all the cases because a personal story gives a face, so to speak, to any initiative, and people get together around about a particular individual rather than a project. What Natalia is doing, this personal story she told us, is an important story. Do you remember Malala? From Pakistan, a UN activism fighting for the girls' rights all over the world. Her story made her movement a success, and it demonstrated opportunities an individual can have and can get. The third factor of success from our point of view is the need to involve the like-minded and building communities of your supporters, which will probably amount to 50% of your success. The idea is quite simple. Every individual, every like or repost you get, or any email, any signature, is represented by a real individual who has his or her own interest and a desire to support you one way or another. Do work with them. Try to understand who they are, what interests they have.
How they can help you to solve certain problems of yours. This is really important. We always urge our authors to communicate with those who submit their petitions. So sometimes among our 150,000 people, we can find drivers, constructors, people from all jobs and professions. And if I can reach out to them, I can create a network of different people. So 81% of our users, according to one survey that we made, would like to do something more than just signing a petition or making a petition on our website. So they are interested in something more fulfilling. So the fourth point is rather simple. All successful initiatives are very good at establishing dialogue with decision makers. If you have some bright, interesting PR stories, then it's helpful. But if we want to introduce systemic change, then you should establish dialogue with those who make decisions. And you have to broaden this network. You have to contact the media with experts, people who know something about the problem that you're working on, with the representatives of non-commercial organizations that have some experience in this area. So you have to create some partner network involving decision makers. So speaking about this petition on compensations, it was a successful petition because not only because the St. Petersburg's authorities started paying something, but because the author of the petition actually initiated, through her dialogue with the victims, a bill, a law. And the final thing I would like to say is that it's also very simple. Celebrate your victories and celebrate every small victory that you achieve. This is especially important in these post-Soviet times, and because we are infused with pessimism. But you should celebrate every little achievement of yours. If somebody likes you on a social network or donates some money to you, you should understand that you're doing something right. You're contributing to the right cause, and it's just a small step, but on a very long way. So hopefully these tips will be of help to you, because that's exactly what's the tips that we give to our users. And I hope that you will come to our website. I'm sure that this is all good ideas. If we have some comments, then I'm ready to give you the floor. But we have to finalize our discussion. A colleague of mine, Irina, has written down some notes. Can you say that what results our discussion has produced? What we can do within the nearest 72 hours when we go back home? So you know that to be a success, you have to implement something that you have just heard within 72 hours. So I think the main thing that I've heard is that all global successful projects have started with a little step. And fear is something that can be very positive. Sometimes fear can help you. I will read out what I have written down here. Systems do not change on their own. Only people can change systems. So it is important to be a leader. A specific goal is half the job. And you should make your idea emotionally valuable to other people, and you have to feel the situation, you have to feel what can inspire people around you. So it is important not to be stopped by the first successes or failures. You should always explore reality for new methods and new instruments. Only such a project can transform into a global initiative. So the instruments of involving people is joint activity. Offer people something that they can enjoy in some joint activity. Create spaces of joy for people. it is important to engage professionals in your project. Don't try to work only on your own. You have to delegate part of your responsibilities or even all of them to professionals. But if you are not ready for this, then become one of these professionals. Develop yourselves. The most important thing is to love what you're doing. You have to be driven by the result. You shouldn't think much about difficulties. You should think more about opportunities and about your target audience and the factors of growth that Dmitry has given. So it is important to believe that any particular problem can have various solutions. If you have failed to solve a problem in one way, think about another, a different way. Perhaps you should take a different tack and do something differently. Use personal stories and case studies. You should understand your main values yourselves. Speak to your audiences. Speak to people. Sometimes a simple request addressed to somebody particular can work wonders. Learn how to work with decision makers. And in this respect, I can share my own experience. I think that the future belongs to those projects that are community-based, that are implemented within a community. So it can involve integrating civil activists, NGOs, representatives of the authorities and business communities. Each participant can contribute to the project something that he's particularly good at. So only such projects can become truly global and truly appealing to lots of people. Thank you, Irina, for this wonderful resume. And I would like to ask our speakers to finalize our discussion within 1 minute. So just a brief question, if you allow me, because we are behind schedule already. I have a question to Dmitry. I'm Vitaly from Vologda. How do you inform the addressees of your petitions? How do you have any statistics? How many petitions have been made over the last year in Russia, and how many of them have been responded to? Yes, of course, we have a built-in system where you can enter your information. So, for example, the addressee's email address. And our system reminds this addressee from time to time about this petition, but the addressees are free to delete our petition, of course, but all efficient companies are based on effective dialogue. And actually, this is the task of the author of the petition to establish the dialogue. And sometimes when the author meets with the addressee, some roundtable discussion has been organized. A solution can be found then. So in other words, all the real solutions are beyond our platform in the real world. Online is just doing something online is just the first step. But real change, of course, takes place offline, and you should understand how you can work with people offline. And the second question about statistics, as I have said already, on average, once a day, a petition is made in Russia, but usually it's 3,000 on average a month. Vladimir, can you make your speech? You know, I'm going to speak even less than 1 minute, because a very frequently asked question in the regions is they ask us to establish a subsidiary. And we tell them, you know, first try to find those who are going to work with us and create your own organization. It's much more interesting. I think that the future belongs to not to global corporations, but to those who can find partners and establish cooperation with them. So that means that the future belongs not to subsidiaries of somebody, but to independent organizations. Now we operate in 60 cities of Russia, and all of these organizations are independent of us. So in St. Petersburg, for example, I have 3 people contacted me from St. Petersburg, and I told them to collaborate with each other and to create an organization with each other. So creating your own things is more important than trying to copy something that others have done. So perhaps it can be something new to you, but you can find partners everywhere. Natalia, the minute is yours. I will quote, so a great desire to win will lead you to a victory. This is a quotation of a big Russian military chief. Nothing can help you if you don't want to achieve success. So you have to have passion, you have to believe in you and your course. Evelyn.
Yeah, I was thinking, and a point that we didn't touch upon that much is, and that's what I wanted to give all of you, is that it is super crucial that you have it very clear why you, or your initiative, your organization exists, and how are you going to measure your impact and whether you succeeded. Because often we fall into the trap that we have a vague idea and we start, and yeah, at one point you just exist because you want to exist. But so my tip would be have it very clear what is the impact that you want to make and measure it and be accountable to everybody else on this planet.
Thank you, Evelyn. Пожалуйста.
I will repeat the main ideas of our project. So remember, always remember that there are more people who want to change the world for the better than those who don't want that. And in this way, Facebook, Vkontakte, Change.org, these are all instruments or just toolkit of yours in achieving your goals. But first, you should understand the goals. And you should understand how to involve other people in your activities, journalists, NGOs, and other stakeholders that will make you make progress. Dmitry. Thank you, Dmitry and Alexander. So a believer can achieve everything. So if you believe that you can change something, believe in it. So believe in the help of others and believe in yourselves. Thank you, dear speakers, and I would like to add something on my behalf. I think that we have elaborated this topic in a good way, and I think that all of us have acquired something new in this discussion. And I see your eyes, and I can see that some change is waiting for you out there. And I don't remember who said that, but there is a quotation: if you think that there are few people who can change the world, don't believe that. That's exactly how the world has been changed so far. So don't allow anybody to stop you. Thank you very much. It's been really interesting.
Ну что же, дамы и господа, спасибо огромное за ваше внимание. Спасибо нашим уважаемым спикерам за интересную дискуссию. Спасибо нашему модератору. So thank you so much for your participation. Wish you all the best and that limited ocean of love.